In this tutorial, we will look at the main screen of Xspouse, with a focus on the data input features of Xspouse. Xspouse has two user interface modes, the professional mode, and the wizard mode. The user interface can be toggled between the two modes by clicking on the Wiz Pro button at the top right of the screen. Let's first take a look at the user interface in professional mode. On the left side of the main screen in professional mode are all the data input fields. We'll come back and explore data input some more in just a moment. The middle of the main screen displays the calculated child and spousal support for the guideline and proposed settlements. The right side of the main screen allows you to toggle through a number of different views of the data. We'll come back to that shortly to show how to select different views. But first, let's explore data input in more detail. The left side of the main screen displays quite an extensive set of data input fields. You can enter values directly into these fields on the main screen. However, you will notice that many of these fields have a raised appearance. Any field with a raised appearance has an associated sub-window with data detail fields. You can either enter an aggregate value into the raised field, or, if you want to enter a detailed breakdown of that data, you can open the data detail sub-window by simply double-clicking the raised field. For example, let's double-click on the other taxable income field. That opens the data detail window where you can enter a detailed breakdown of other taxable income. Let's enter values into some of the detail fields. When you click on the OK button, the detailed data is aggregated into the raised field on the main screen. If you enter a value directly into a raised field on the main screen, it will be treated as the aggregate value and will go into a default field in the associated data detail window. For example, if we enter a value directly into the other taxable income field on the main screen, and then double-click on the raised field to open the data detail window, you will see that the value from the main screen has been assigned to the default other taxable income field in the detail window. Also note that all of the values that we had entered a moment ago have been cleared. That is important to remember, that is, if you enter an aggregate value into a raised field on the main screen, it will reset all of the fields in the associated data detail sub-window and will assign the aggregate value from the main screen to the default field in the data detail sub-window. Let's return to the main screen. Another thing to notice when you enter an aggregate value into a raised field on the main screen is that the value is initially displayed in a red font. That is simply to alert and remind you that you haven't used the data detail fields to enter data. If, at some point, you open the data detail sub-window and click the OK button to close the data detail sub-window, the font in the aggregate field on the main screen will revert to black because Xspouse will assume that, by clicking the OK button to close the data detail window, you have visually verified the correctness of the data detail fields. By the way, in addition to double-clicking on a raised field to open the associated data detail window, you can also simply press the D key on the keyboard when you are on any of the raised fields on the main screen. Also, in addition to simply mouse-clicking onto whichever field you want to enter data, you can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to navigate around the grid of input fields, both on the main screen and also in the data detail sub-windows. Before we finish on data input, let's have a look at how to change the filing status of the litigants. To change the filing status, either repeatedly right-click on the filing status, or highlight the field and then use the spacebar and backspace keys to scroll in either direction through the various available filing statuses. Note that the filing statuses need to be compatible between the litigants. For example, if we select two incompatible statuses, Xspouse will pop up an error message. You may have noticed that a red Recalculate button appears whenever we enter or change any data input values. All of the values that you enter into the data input fields are assigned to the appropriate federal and state tax forms within Xspouse. You can either mouse-click on the Recalculate button, or simply press the Enter key, and Xspouse will recompute the tax forms and the child and spousal support. We'll look at tax forms in a separate video. At the top of the screen, you will notice some fields that have a sunken appearance. In Xspouse, fields with a sunken appearance have various options that you can cycle through by repeatedly right-clicking on the sunken field. An alternative to right-clicking is to click into the field and then use the spacebar and backspace key to cycle back and forth through the options. For example, if we repeatedly right-click on the year field, We can cycle the display on the main screen through the range of taxation years that are covered by this version of Xspouse. A shortcut for cycling through the tax years is to press the Y key at any time. Similarly, we can switch back and forth between working with monthly or annual figures by right-clicking on that field at any time to toggle between the two modes. A shortcut for toggling between monthly and annual figures is to simply press the I key at any time. To cycle through the various views on the right side of the main screen, simply repeatedly right-click on the sunken field, or use the spacebar and/or the backspace key, until you have the view that you want to look at. Right-click once to change the view to income tax. Let's quickly cycle through the other available views. Notice that the data detail view appears blank at first. However, if you then click into any of the data input fields on the left side of the main screen, the data detail view on the right side will display any associated data detail fields. You can enter data into the detail fields on the right side of the screen. It is an alternative to opening data detail sub-windows, as we demonstrated earlier in this video. By the way, Xspouse ships with cash flow as the default startup view on the right side of the main screen. However, you can change the default startup view by clicking on the File menu, and then clicking on the Preferences menu item. There you will see various sunken fields that allow you to cycle through various preference options, including setting the default startup view for the right side of the main screen. Click OK to save any preferences that you change. The changes will take effect the next time that you start Xspouse. Earlier we said that whenever you enter or change any input data, the values are assigned to the appropriate federal or state tax forms within Xspouse. The income tax view provides a summary of the computed tax forms within Xspouse. In a separate video, we'll look at how to view the various federal and state tax forms to see the detailed tax calculations, but for now, let's set the view on the right side to income tax, and then enter some income for both litigants. You will notice that, when we click on the Recalculate button, or press the Enter key, the income tax view will be updated immediately with a summary of the recomputed tax forms. You will also notice that additional sunken fields appear in this view. You can right-click on these sunken fields to toggle between the two litigants, and to toggle between federal and state income tax. In the middle of the main screen are the child and spousal support panels. The upper of the two panels shows the computed net incomes of the litigants, as well as the guideline support settlement. The lower of the two panels shows the proposed settlement based on the selected tactic. You can change the computation methods for child and spousal support by clicking onto the label and then right-clicking to cycle through the available options. Whenever you change either the child or spousal computation method, the settlement figures are immediately recomputed. Likewise, if we change any data input values, then the guideline and proposed settlements are immediately recomputed. To demonstrate, let's change the value in the father's wages and salary field, and you will notice that the values in the middle panels, as well as in the panel on the right of the screen, will be immediately updated with the recomputed values. In this particular scenario, you will notice that the child support is now showing as a negative number. A negative number signifies that the support is to be paid by the low-income earner to the high-income earner. We will take a closer look at tactics, computation methods, and settings in other videos. The upper panel also shows the low-income range of child support in low-income situations. Okay, now let's look at the user interface in wizard mode. First, toggle to wizard mode by clicking on the Wiz Pro button at the top right of the main screen. You will notice that all of the data input fields that appear on the left side of the main screen in professional mode are also listed on the left side in wizard mode. The main difference is that, in wizard mode, the right side of the screen contains explanatory text to help you understand the data inputs for each field. You can click onto any of the fields on the left, or you can use the up and down arrow keys to navigate through the fields on the left side of the screen. Note that, as we move through the fields on the left of the screen, the help text on the right side of the screen changes to match the current field. If a field on the left side of the screen has an associated data detail window, then the data input fields in the middle of the screen will have a raised appearance. To open the data detail window, you can either press the D key on the keyboard, or you can double-click on either of the raised fields. At the top of the middle panel, you can cycle through the tax years. And you can toggle between working in monthly or annual figures. In the middle of the screen, you can toggle between seeing the guideline and proposed settlements. Also, just as in professional mode, you can toggle the computation methods for both child and spousal support by right-clicking on the respective fields. You can, at any time during data input, click on the Wiz Pro button at the top right of the screen to switch the user interface back and forth between professional and wizard modes. For example, you may enter data for some fields using the professional mode user interface, but then switch to wizard mode for another field for which you want some explanatory information. Xspouse ships with professional mode as the default startup user interface, but you can change the default startup interface to wizard mode by clicking on the File menu, and then clicking on the Preferences menu item. There you will see the option for setting either the professional or the wizard mode as the default startup user interface. You may have already noticed that, in both professional and wizard modes, a brief explanatory comment for the current input field appears at the bottom of the screen. To finish off this tutorial, we will take a brief glimpse at the data detail window for children, which is the first input field at the top left of the main screen in professional mode, or near the top left in wizard mode. You can simply enter the number of children on the main screen, and then set the overall timeshare with the non-custodial parent on the next row. However, Xspouse provides an extensive set of features for determining timeshare between custodial and non-custodial parents. You can access these features in the data detail window. Let's double-click on the children input field to open the data detail window. You can enter up to 10 children for this relationship, as well as specifying the number of children in other relationships. In addition to being able to enter names and dates of birth for children, a suite of options are available to help calculate the timeshare. As mentioned, this was just a brief glimpse at the features that Xspouse provides for entering information about children. We will take a detailed look at those features in a separate video. Thank you for watching. We are aiming to build up a suite of tutorial videos on various aspects of using Xspouse. If you would like to receive notifications when new tutorial videos are uploaded, please click on subscribe. Also, we are always receptive to receiving suggestions from users for tutorial videos, so if there are any aspects of Xspouse on which you would like us to create a tutorial video, please email your suggestions to support@xspouse.com.